Welcome to the Half Empty, Half Full radio show on the Starcom and Tan Talk Radio Network with your host, Lori Zook, the consumer champion. All opinions are that of the host and guests. Do you have a story idea? Contact us on our Facebook page, Half Empty, Half Full. We want to hear from you. And now, your host, the consumer champion, Lori Zook.
Welcome to the show. Each week, we'll be discussing problems and solutions, changing negatives to positives, and helping you, the consumer, to get smarter faster. Now, today, we have an interesting show for you. My guest today is Bobby J. Gallo, and he's from the Gallo Family Ghost Hunters. Bobby, welcome to the show, and would you share with our listeners a bit about yourself and your background?
Yes. Hi, Lori. Thanks for having me on the show today. Basically, about myself, I have a varied background. I used to be a touring professional magician for many years, and then it was kind of funny. In the early 1990s, I got together with a few friends, and we did some paranormal investigations. We actually called ourselves the Psy Guys. And it was very interesting. This was before the paranormal phenomenon took place. It was before the TV shows. And basically, it was before paranormal became cool.
Okay.
It's something that I had done, and I stopped doing it. We did a few investigations, and we actually have that on tape. And years later, all of a sudden, this paranormal phenomenon became all the rage. You know, there were shows on TV, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, and all types of shows. And I told my kids, this because when I did it was before I had kids, I told my kids, I said, hey, kids, Daddy used to do that. And they were really,
fascinated?
They were fascinated. They were fascinated by it. And I was kind of dubious of all the evidence that these guys were getting on TV. So it was kind of a double-pronged thing. So we decided that we would give it a shot, and things kind of escalated from there. And, the rest, as they say, it is history.
All right, now let me ask you, you were a professional magician, so You know all the tricks and all the sleight of hand. Is that kind of what brought you into the paranormal, the things that couldn't be explained by magic? How did you get into the paranormal stuff?
It's a very interesting question, and there's actually a very good answer. A lot of people don't know this, but Harry Houdini, a large part of his career was actually debunking fraudulent spiritualists back in the early part of the 20th century. So magicians actually are uniquely qualified to see if what some of these paranormal investigators to see if some of these things that they are presenting as evidence is actually fraudulent or trickery or something of that nature. So I thought I was coming to it with a real good perspective, and I was going to be able to explain away everything these guys on TV were doing.
And you probably weren't able to do that. Well, talking about that, what is your definition of paranormal?
Well, obviously the dictionary term of paranormal is anything that is not normal. However, I don't, and that would include things like cryptozoology, which would be like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, things like that. But my definition of paranormal would be anything that is supernatural based, anything that would be considered, to do with ghosts or spirits or things like that.
Okay, now ghost spirits, apparitions, are they the same thing? Do they mean the same thing?
No, they could actually be two very different things. Basically, what I term a ghost is a disembodied human spirit. It's basically the part of a person that does not move on to the next plane of existence, and they stay here for one reason or another. An apparition can actually be caused by one of the two types of hauntings. One type of haunting is an intelligent haunting, and that would be caused by a ghost or a spirit per se. And there's also something called a residual haunting. And a residual haunting is when the energy from an event imprints itself on the surroundings. And people can see, like, the figure of a woman going down a staircase, and it happens over and over and over, maybe when the moon is in a certain phase, almost like clockwork, and it's almost like a broken record. We call those residual haunts.
Okay. And
so that's not,
Yeah, I've heard stories, you hear these stories in the paper about some hotel having the same spirit or ghost appear over and over, doing the same thing every single time. So is that what you mean?
It is, and in those cases, it's actually not an intelligent being. Again, it's like a spiritual record player, and it just plays itself over and over and over. We actually had a really good experience of a residual haunt just recently at the site of a train crash.
Okay. You want to tell me about that?
Sure. It was in Rockport, New Jersey, which was actually the site of one of the worst railroad disasters in U.S. history. And it was in 1925. And when we went there, we were getting incredible readings on our instrumentation. And we actually have one program that is designed by a good friend of mine who's a paranormal researcher called a Spirit Box. And when we were getting voices through it, and it was saying, we are burning, my family is burning, we are burning. It was very dark, but when we did the research, that's exactly what happened. What happened was it was in the days of steam locomotion, and there was a derailment, and all the passenger cars flipped on top of the main engine, which was a steam engine, and basically most of the people were burned alive. So when we were getting those words through our instrumentation, and basically there was no two-way communication there at all. It was just saying the same things over and over again. I basically attributed that to the fact that there was such a strong event happening that it was actually soaked into the hillsides, and it would just play itself over and over. And if you go there today, you can actually see the original burned railroad ties are still on the ground. Okay. The original telegraph wires are still up. It's exactly the way it was, from 1925.
Okay, now it kind of gives me chills. I've had some experience with paranormal activity, and I run from it. However, you do the opposite. You're almost like a tornado, watcher. You're running towards it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go back to, when you were little. I mean, what fascinated you? How did you, what was the hook that kind of got you into investigating paranormal activity?
Well, I was always a really sick child in that regard. I loved all the monster movies and things like that. But ghosts always held a particular fascination for me. But here's the thing: I think everybody has that fascination with ghosts, even those people who claim that they don't believe, because we all want to know if there's an afterlife. We all want to know if there's something, after we shovel off this mortal coil, as they say, that there's something beyond. And that's really what ghost hunting is all about. We're trying to find answers. There is definitely a thrill to it. There's no question, because you go to the most fascinating places, and some of them are creepy as heck. But it's basically trying to find out if there really is something after we die, and why some people choose to stay or cannot move on, okay, and some people do.
Well, now, I know you had a TV show, right? You have the Gallo Family Ghost Hunters. So,
correct.
I'm looking at the website now on my computer screen. I see your family is involved in it. Give me some details about it. Is it a regular TV show? Or is it a computer, like an internet TV show?
Yes, it's part of internet TV. Those people who have a Roku box can actually watch it on the Daily Motion channel. But probably the easier way would be to go right to the website, which is ghosthunter.ws, and they could watch all 60 episodes. We haven't been releasing new ones lately. We do plan on getting back into it. We kind of took a hiatus because we just did so much, we got burnt out. But there is probably some of the best paranormal evidence on that show that you will ever see. And I try not to brag, but when we got into this, we wanted to see if we could get the same type of evidence that we saw the guys getting on TV. Well, it turns out that we get more. And maybe it's because the family is involved. Maybe it's because it's easier for us to communicate, or we attract them more. I really don't know. All I can tell you is that there are things on this show that will keep you up at night. It's the whole family is involved. It's very fascinating, and I'll tell you what, I always say the people that don't believe are the people that, number one, either never went ghost hunting or never watched the show.
Okay, now how does your family feel about it? They're not terrified when they go? They're more fascinated like you, and they have no fear?
No fear whatsoever. I probably have the bravest kids on the planet. It was funny because we would go to some reputedly haunted cemeteries like 12 o'clock midnight after getting permission, of course, and there would be my youngest daughter like running away trying to find the ghost, and she was serious. She wanted to find the ghost, and we've had situations where we've had entities standing right next to me, and my daughter took a picture of it and standing right next to me, and they are not afraid at all.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good. See, sorry, I couldn't do that. I would never go with you. I'd rather watch it on your TV show. You know, overall, how many homes have you visited? Do most of them have ghosts, and were you able to clear the homes of ghosts?
Well, that's a very good question, because we are not paranormal investigators. We're ghost hunters, and there's a quantifiable difference.
Okay.
A paranormal investigator is the type of team that will go into maybe a home that has like a very dark haunting, and try to clear it. We really don't do anything like that. We're just looking for evidence, and we actually don't normally go to homes specifically for that reason. Homes normally have very dark energy attached to them if there is a haunting, and if we get the feeling that there is something dark in the area, we don't pursue it. We leave, and we've had that on occasion. But we're not psychics per se. Although I think my wife does have some psychic tendencies, we're not anything like exorcists or, anything, and we're not demonologists. We're ghost hunters. We're basically just looking for evidence of the paranormal, and we normally go to places like cemeteries and battlefields and, mainly historical haunts, but we've found many that are actually off the beaten path that nobody's ever investigated.
Okay, now one of the things I've heard is that these ghosts or spirits, if they're in a house or if they're in an area, like you said, with a train crash, if something happens to change that area, like in a house, if you renovate it, or maybe, where a train wreck occurred now, now it's a development with houses, that supposedly they don't like that when things change, and that tends to make them come out more. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I totally know. I totally know what you're saying. Yeah. I guess it really depends on the entity. I mean, the bottom line is that these are people. They were once people. They're still people, and some of them don't want their. They want to stay in their home. I think the interesting thing about it is, though, and we once had a communication with some ancient Native Americans, and I asked them a very specific question. I said, "Do you see this area as it was when you were alive, or do you see it as it is now?" And the answer was both.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you to hold on just for a second. We're going to take a short commercial break, and then I want you to come back and finish that answer.
I've done my sentence, but committed no crime.
Hubble Funeral Home and Crematory, close to you when you need the most. Hubble Funeral Home and Crematory is conveniently located off West Bay Drive in Bel Air and is accessible to individuals with any physical challenges. Hubble Funeral Home and Crematory has taken great care to provide surroundings of peace and comfort and is proud to offer formal chapel seating for 80 to 120 guests, a separate repose room with living room furnishings for a relaxed, more intimate service, a private clergy room, 2 comfortable arrangement rooms, a state-of-the-art music system, and ample parking. Hubble Funeral Home and Crematory invites you to stop by and tour their facility at any time at 499 North Indian Rocks Road in Bel Air Bluffs. And please feel free to call anytime. 727-584-7671. Hubble Funeral Home and Crematory. Simply compassionate. Find them online at hubblefuneralhome.com.
Do you like the lure of speed and the finest in luxury? Then come to the Festivals of Speed presented by Burt Smith Porsche, Sunday, March 8th at the Vinoy Park, downtown St. Petersburg. Festivals of Speed is a gathering of the world's most exotic automobiles, motorcycles, watercrafts, and luxury brands. Names like Porsche, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Lamborghini, and others will all be on display. For more information, visit festivalsofspeed.com or call 352-385-9450.
Do you suffer from back, neck, or body pain? Do you suffer from migraines or have jaw or face pain? Has conventional medicine failed you? Were you injured or in an accident? Call chiropractic physician Dr. Dan Maddock at 813-935-1664. Dr. Dan has helped thousands of patients gain relief for more than 30 years. Dr. Dan is caring, gentle, and takes his time with each patient. He's also a past president of the International Craniopathic Society, a special certification of only 300 chiropractors worldwide. Dr. Dan helps patients from the neck up and the neck down. Dr. Dan accepts most insurance plans. Don't continue to live in pain. Call 813-935-1664 today. That's 813-935-1664 and get on track to better health.
I've paid my dues time after time.
Welcome back to the Half Empty, Half Full Talk radio show. We're doing an interesting show today. We're talking with Bobby J. Gallo of the Gallo Family Ghost Hunters. Bobby, in the last segment, we were talking a little bit about, how things change, and you were talking, I think, about the Native Americans.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We had a conversation, I should say.
Okay.
and a lot of people ask me how we have conversations with spirits, and it's either through our equipment or EVP, radio recorder. But I asked the Native Americans, I said, do you see, and this is after we established contact, do you see this area as it was, because it was an old fort? I said, or do you see it as it was or as it is now? And they said both.
Okay.
So I think that, these spirits are in an alternate dimension. They're in our dimension, but they're also in an alternate dimension. And I think, depending on, where they're coming from, they might exist in two time realities. I mean, it's really hard to grasp, but once you're in this for a while, it actually becomes easier.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought that, you talk about the alternate dimension. Maybe the alternate dimension exists with the dimension we're in now simultaneously in unison, but maybe we can sometimes see them, but it sounds like they could probably see us a lot more. Just my guess.
I think you're right. Yes, I agree with that 100%.
Now, are there other types of non-apparition activity, whether it's in a home or outside?
Non-apparition activity?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure.
In other words, not necessarily a spirit, maybe something moving.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Telekinesis and ESP. In fact, there are a lot of parapsychology organizations think that a lot of poltergeist activity is actually more psychic than it is spiritual, because it's usually there's usually an adolescent girl in the household, and they have tremendous psychic powers around that time. And a lot of these things, when things move and whatnot, that's really not a spirit at all, but actually us doing it.
Oh boy, a lot of people out there with teenagers might be freaking out. Listening to that. Well, let's talk a bit. What do you do? How do you know if you have a ghost? I want to talk about what some of the signs there are, and have you got experience yourself with where they try to communicate with you?
Yeah, I mean, basically, we look for them and then they communicate. They basically respond to our requests. But if anything ever tried to communicate with me while I wasn't looking for them, I can't recall at the time when that actually ever did happen. They say there's a lot of signs that they could be communicating you, especially through dreams and through signs like, it's funny as it may sound, birds and butterflies and things like that they actually say are spiritual messengers. But I'm not so sure. I do think there might be some truth to that. I just know basically, the communications that I've had is when we were actively looking for them.
Okay, now, I pulled up a list, Bobby, of 101 signs that you may have encountered a ghost or a spirit off of a website. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask you about some of them, and you tell me what you think.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like you're being watched, but you're by yourself, and I think most people would have to say that's happened, is that a sign, or is that just your own head?
Well, here's the thing. It could be both, and that's the rub. I mean, I'm not going to come on to any show and say that everything is a ghost, because then I just seem like a wacko.
Right.
I think there are people that have mental issues. I definitely believe that, and they believe that what they're experiencing are ghosts, whether it be voices inside their head or suffering from bipolar disorder or anything like that. So you really need to look at the whole picture. I would honestly say there has to be more than one side. You have to take a bunch of pieces of evidence and put it together almost like a puzzle in order to make the determination that it is a ghost.
Okay, that's a good answer. What about things like unexplained lights in your house or even outside? Have you come across something like that?
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of people see orbs. I mean, orbs is a very controversial subject. Some people think it's just dust, but like you just mentioned, some people see them with the naked eye. And I am actually a believer in orbs. I think the spirit takes on an orb-like shape, because that's the natural shape for residual energy in the universe anyway. Stars and everything takes on a ball-like shape. So, that being said, I do think that unexplained lights can be a sign of a spiritual presence, yes.
All right. What about things like, a young child freaking out, or even a pet where maybe they're staring somewhere and they just get that uncomfortable feeling and they have to leave? And I can tell you, I've got a couple of Great Danes, and I have one that did that once, and it scared the heck out of me because I heard nothing. He just stood there barking like something was in the room, and I actually felt all the hairs on my neck and my arms stand up. What about something like that?
Well, you just asked the $1 million question, and I'm going to answer with a 1,000% yes, that dogs can hear ghosts. And how do I know? How do you know that? I'll tell you how I know this. Because one of the best pieces of evidence that we get as ghost hunters is something called an EVP, an electronic voice phenomenon. Now, they can only be captured with digital recorders. Up to this point, we've never been able to hear ghosts. Now we can actually hear them. We have found that these ghosts speak on the same frequencies that only dogs can hear. So the same voice that is being captured on our EVP recorder is the same voice that a dog can actually hear.
So the dog is actually hearing something. And
yes.
the interesting part for me is if you're a young child and they're freaking out over something that they can't see and they say it's in the room. Young children typically don't really know. They don't know what paranormal activity is. They don't know what ghosts are other than Casper in a cartoon, right? So it's not like they're going to be lying about it, where someone who's older might just be making it up.
Correct. And here's the larger thing there. Children have not been jaded by society yet. So they accept things. Like what happens with us is as we get older and we become more cynical as a society, these signs are always present to us, but we ignore them or we explain them away when they actually can be paranormal in nature.
All right. Now, what about things like, I remember years ago I had a friend who told me he felt like somebody sat down at the foot of the bed. Like someone was sitting there, but no one was. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's common. That's very, very common. Physical contact. I've had a ghost touch my arm. It's very, very. It felt like spider webs going down my arm. So that's another thing too. If you walk into a room and you feel like spider webs are on your face, that's a very, very strong sign that there is a presence in the room. But yeah, many, many, many times, ghosts can manifest in a lot of different ways. It takes quite a bit of energy for them to do so, but for them to actually get up enough energy to sit down on the bed and you actually feel the bed depress, that's pretty strong.
All right. Now, of course, we've all watched a lot of movies where things happen. What about situations where, lights, TVs, electrical devices start operating by themselves? The kid's toy starts moving on its own?
That doesn't so much happen, but I'll tell you what does happen. See, when a ghost manifests on this plane of existence, whether it be for an EVP recording or an apparition that you can actually see, or, where it appears, it requires a lot of energy, and we think that's electromagnetic energy. So therefore, they have to get that energy from somewhere. They could actually get it from a person, which is why a lot of times during a paranormal investigation, a person will become very lethargic and feel very tired, or they could actually get it from your equipment. We have battery drain all the time. You'll see on a lot of our episodes where we say, battery went dead, a full charge, and they just drain it down to zero, and then all of a sudden, boom, something happens. Because they take that energy and they use it to manifest. So I wouldn't say they so much things turn on as much as turn off. Okay,
wow, I'm getting the chills. What about the sound of footsteps, but you're all alone? And I actually know someone that happened to, and there was no one in the house, but they heard heavy footsteps. They actually heard breathing. And when they went out into the hallway, and this was 3:00 in the morning, there was no one there, and the house was all locked up.
Well, I'll tell you what. I want everybody after this show to go to our channel and watch the episode called Footsteps of Antietam. When we were in the Antietam National Battlefield in the old church there, where not only did we hear the footsteps, but we have them on video, and you can hear them too.
Okay. And all right, now what about smelling a fragrance? Because I've heard that's another common sign that you can smell something. Have you had that happen?
Yeah, I've actually had that happen a lot. Again, it's just one more way they manifest, and we don't know why they manifest some ways and not others. That's those things are still mysteries.
Okay. Have you heard things like furniture's rearranged? And I'm thinking now, like, in the movies, but does that really happen? Do things actually move? Have you seen actual material objects ever move in your presence?
Actually, that's one thing. We don't get a lot of that. We don't get a lot of anything moving. We get tons of photographic evidence. We get audio evidence. We get EVP evidence. We get tons of stuff, but we don't get a lot of actual, and that, again, that falls under the definition of poltergeist activity. We just don't get a lot of that.
All right. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
My dues, time after time, I've done my sentence.
Consumers, do you have bad credit? Can't purchase a house or car? Paying too much in interest on your credit cards and loans? Scammed by credit repair companies? There is hope. You can get back on track and do it the right way. Call Credit Education Consultants today at 813-500-6064. That's 813-500-6064. Or go to crediteducationconsultants.com now and get the help you need. Don't delay. Call today. Mortgage reps and realtor inquiries are also welcomed.
Hello, I'm Jim Velasquez. Does getting a lousy 1% on your CDs make you sick to your stomach? Inflation is hovering at 3%, so what's really happening? Allow me, Jim Velasquez, to send you my free report. If you haven't reviewed your CDs in a while, don't get this report. It will break your heart. If you want to fight back and beat the bank, text RETIRE to 72727 for this free report. Let's beat the bank. Text RETIRE to 72727 for your free report.
Time after time.
Welcome back to the Half Empty, Half Full Talk radio show. My guest is Bobby J. Gallo of the Gallo Family Ghost Hunters. Now, Bobby, are there good ghosts and bad ghosts? Is there a difference? Do you feel that there's an evil presence that maybe is trying to hurt you versus one that's just there and, doesn't care?
I definitely believe that there are darker energies and energies that are not so dark. Here's the thing: if a ghost does exist and it is in a certain location, it's usually there for a number of reasons, and most of the time those reasons might not be as good as we would like. I mean, if we died tomorrow, we would probably want to move on to the next plane of existence, as long as there was nothing holding us here. A lot of times, the reason that there's so much energy on battlefields is because these guys died so tragically. Or if a person has unfinished business here on this earth, it might not be good, or maybe they don't want to move on because they fear judgment on the other side. There's a whole host of reasons why spirits don't move on. So by and large, when you do come across a ghost, more times than not, they're not the friendliest, but they can be.
Okay. Can a ghost follow you? I mean, can it follow you, into your car and, into the store? Can it follow you around? Because again, I've read stories where people claim that something is following them no matter where they are.
Well, yeah, they can. There are ways to safeguard against that, but they can't follow you. And the worst thing is if they attach to you. And if they attach to you, sometimes they can be tough to get rid of. And so when I tell people, if you ever go ghost hunting or you ever want to go ghost hunting, do not take anything away from the area you are investigating. Even if it's in a cemetery, don't take a rock home. Don't take anything home, because that is the easiest way for them to follow you.
Okay. Now, we want to talk about ruling out rational explanations. And again, you're a professional magician. How do you rule out what's rational versus irrational?
Well, of course, being a ghost hunter, you want everything you find to be genuine, but sometimes it's not. Again, going back to like putting it all together like a puzzle, basically what we'll do is we'll look at all the evidence and then we'll come to a determination. Like, so if we got a great EVP and at the same time we got some Class A orbs, in the same location, and the EMF detector was going, the needle was going off the scale, we're going to come to the conclusion that it was probably, paranormal. If it's just one isolated thing, you look for ways to debunk it, but sometimes you can't.
All right. Now you're mentioning your equipment. Is the equipment specialized? Is it made specifically for what you do? Is it made for other purposes and it just happens to work for determining, what's there?
Most of my equipment is designed for paranormal investigation, except for the cameras and the recorders. You can use any digital camera and any digital recorder, honestly, to go ghost hunting, but we have special electromagnetic detectors that are calibrated to detect human-like electromagnetic energy, which is often associated with paranormal activity.
Okay, so you basically use the same equipment. When you watch the TV shows and they're showing the boxes, you're using the same type of equipment. In other words. Yes,
and we use extensively things like an Ovilus device, and basically what that is it's an electronic device that takes electromagnetic energies and forms it into words. So the chance of it not being paranormal is very slim if these words start coming through.
All right, so when you're picking up words, are you hearing them when you're recording them, or do you hear it after when you play back what you've recorded?
If it's an EVP, we hear it later in the studio. But if we are using an Ovilus device, we hear that in real time. So then we try to communicate with the entity.
All right. Now, do people, seek you out if they think they're being haunted? Or you mentioned earlier, do you just go to places where you know that there's something going on? And how do you find where you're going to when you do your shows or when you've done your shows?
Well, we've had people contact us, but again, I don't do private investigations. I don't feel we're equipped for that. And I think if anything were to be really dark in those locations, I don't want my kids there. So we do go to historical haunts, places that are open to the public or places we can get permission to investigate. But, we go to all kinds of places. We go to both famous places and we go to places that we might see on the side of the road and say, wow, that might look like a great place to investigate.
Now, is there any way, does your equipment actually prove, because people have different definitions of proof, of course, and I'm sure, probably hundreds, if not thousands of people have caught strange images or have heard recordings. Is that considered proof? You see it on TV. You see it on TV where they show the photo or the video with something, and I'm sure that you have to rule out every other variable to say it's nothing, that makes sense.
Well, I would like to say a lot of it is proof, but the reality is a lot of it is evidence. It's all evidence. Everything is evidence, but whether it's proof or not, I don't think we're at that level yet. I do believe that we are developing technologies that are thinning the veil between this dimension and the next. I'm sure of that. I think we are proof of that. But I can't say it's undeniable proof. It's definitely evidence, though.
Okay, now, I know you mentioned you don't so much go into the homes, but for someone who they're in a home, is there a gut instinct with them that something is wrong in that home or in that building or wherever they're at?
Yeah, I would say if they keep experiencing unexplained phenomena, including things like mood changes in people, like irritability, depression, things like that, that can all be signs of some kind of haunting. I would seek out the local, paranormal and investigative team. You can either do that. If you go on the web, there's just thousands of them right now, and some of them are really well equipped to investigate it. Whether they can clear it is another story.
Okay, now, I'll give you a situation where I know someone who lived in a residence and things happened for, over a period of many years, And ultimately, she found out that someone had been actually one of the original homeowners' family members many years before they lived there actually committed suicide. And felt that there was something happening. So is this ghost typically someone who died in the residence or was murdered, or it doesn't even matter?
Well, yeah, I would say it would probably be that person, or it could be their residual energy. Once again, it may not be an intelligent haunt, but that still qualifies as a haunt because the energy is so strong, because the event that happened there was so strong that, things happen. It's just that energy that's absorbed into the property.
All right. So how do you get rid of a ghost? How do you get it to move on? What kind of steps, and can it return?
I personally don't think any ghost hunter or even paranormal investigative group can really do it. I think, I am a believer that there are genuine psychics out there. I also think there's a lot of fraudulent ones, and I also think there's a lot of people who think they're psychic that actually have mental disorder.
Okay.
But, I'm serious. It's the truth. It's like that one field where I think all three things can apply. But I think there are genuine ones out there, and I think if you can find a good genuine one, they normally can clear the energy.
Okay. So it's really not something that you want to try to do yourself. People are going to go on the internet, Bobby, and look and say, how do I do that? And it could be the wrong information.
Well, there are things that, people can do, like, throw, white table salt around the house. That's supposed to repel them. And, a white sage incense is supposed to be another good thing. But it's not something really that's easily done yourself. I mean, depending on how religious you are, you might want to call up your local clergy. They might be able to help you out. I know a Catholic bishop who is a paranormal investigator. And he goes and he clears these things out himself, and he's quite successful. But I think you need to find somebody who knows what they're doing.
All right. Well, how does a professional, someone who does this, how do they get trained? I mean, are there classes?
Well, there actually are. And going back to Bishop Long, who I was just referring to, he actually has classes on this. But that's not easy to find. Again, it's probably something you'd have to go to the internet for.
All right. What do you think of people like, I'm sure you've heard of John Edward, and yep. Sylvia Brown. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Because I've watched them both, and John Edward, I am so fascinated. And we got about a minute till break. What do you think?
You know what? As long as I have been in this field and as much evidence as I've gathered, some of these people, man, I just don't know. I want to think he's real. I really do. And Sylvia Brown and James Von Prague. I mean, these people are uncanny. I'll tell you what, if they're not real, they're the greatest actors. They all deserve Oscars.
Yeah. Scary. All right, well, stay with us. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Time after time, I've done my sentence, but committed no crime.
Do you suffer from back, neck, or body pain? Do you suffer from migraines or have jaw or face pain? Has conventional medicine failed you? Were you injured or in an accident? Call chiropractic physician Dr. Dan Maddock at 813-935-1664. Dr. Dan has helped thousands of patients gain relief for more than 30 years. Dr. Dan is caring, gentle, and takes his time with each patient. He's also a past president of the International Craniopathic Society, a special certification of only 300 chiropractors worldwide. Dr. Dan helps patients from the neck up and the neck down. Dr. Dan accepts most insurance plans. Don't continue to live in pain. Call 813-935-1664 today. That's 813-935-1664 and get on track to better health.
Frozen. In that instant when the puck appears in the back of the net. In that moment when jaws open in astonishment. In that second, everything stands still. But the next second, you are the energy that shatters the stillness. The Tampa Bay Lightning. Be the Thunder.
Lightning single game tickets are on sale now. Visit TampaBayLightning.com or call 800-745-3000.
Come see Winter. Clearwater Marine Aquarium is home to the world's most famous dolphin, Winter. Clearwater Marine Aquarium just wrapped up filming a major motion picture, Dolphin Tale, starring Morgan Freeman, Harry Connick Jr., Ashley Judd, and Chris Christopherson. Visit the Clearwater Marine Aquarium to see the movie set and meet the star, Winter. Visit seawinter.com for hours, admission pricing, and ways you can get up close and personal with a dolphin. See you at the Clearwater Marine Aquarium today.
Imus in the morning.
Here is Eddie Murphy. Hi, Eddie.
Forbes magazine said I'm the most overpaid actor. Get out of here. I played 6 parts in Nutty Professor. Just think how much money the producers would have spent if they paid me 6 times. In Nutty Professor 2, I played 6 parts again. That's 12 parts for 2 movies. 12. I tell you who's overpaid. How about Jack Black? His last name is Black, but his movie's all in red. Kristen Stewart, they gave her $30 million to look into the camera with that blank stare and take long pauses between her lines. You know why she plays a vampire? Because she's sucking all of Hollywood dry. You think I don't know what this is all about? It's because I'm black. They should have called the article Eddie Murphy is sitting on top of the world in Beverly Hills. But I guess they decided to call it Murphy Sucks because they didn't want to do Beverly Hills Cop 5. Somebody's still mad from bankrolling Pluto Nash. What was I supposed to do? Somebody said, hey man, here's $20 million for this piece of crap. I said, Randy, Monty, this is my lucky day. This is my lucky day. And I cashed a check, which got me on Forbes' other list, the richest black celebrities.
Catch Imus in the morning, right here on the stations of the Tan Talk Network.
Arg, matey. When it's time for lunch, when it's time for dinner, when the show's over, when the day's over, when it's time to chill, where do we go? Over to Naughty Nancy's Food Shack and Crow's Nest Pub. It's literally in our backyard, right in back of the WTAN studios at 700 Eldridge Street, just north of downtown Clearwater. Just look for the broadcast tower. Nancy's food and atmosphere get rave reviews. The laid-back patio is a great place to hang out, dine, and listen to live music at night. And Nancy's one of the friendliest proprietors in town. And now, Nancy is serving Sunday Jazz Brunch from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Brunch served with Eggs Benedict, crepes, waffles, lox and bagels, shrimp, oysters, and a build-your-own omelet. That's all at Naughty Nancy's Food Shack and Crow's Nest Pub, 700 Eldridge Street in Clearwater. That's right where Eldridge crosses the Pinellas Trail between Myrtle and Fort Harrison. Call 446-3717. 446-3717. You're listening to the Tan Talk Radio Network.
I've paid my dues time after time.
Welcome back to the Half Empty, Half Full Talk Radio Show. We've been speaking with Bobby J. Gallo of the Gallo Family Ghost Hunters. Now, Bobby, I've seen movies that creep me out. You know, Amityville Horror, Mothman Prophecies. You know, they're loosely based on true stories. Obviously, something happened. In this segment, I want you to talk about some of the stories that, you know, that you can share, that maybe where you and your family were involved or maybe just you were involved.
Sure, absolutely. Again, if people go to our show and watch it, you know, you're going to see around 60 different episodes. And it's really amazing, you know, the things that have happened in those 60 episodes. You know, for instance, I'll give you a great example. We were at this very small family-owned cemetery in South Carolina, and it was known for being haunted. And when I got permission from the landowners, because it was on privately held land, to investigate it. Mm-hmm. And when we did, we contacted what apparently was the 200-year-old ancestor that founded the family in the United States. He was a key figure during the Revolutionary War. His name was Thomas Sprott. And what happened was we were in the cemetery. It was in the middle of the night, and we were getting all kinds of communication through our equipment. And what had happened was my oldest daughter, Nicolette, was taking pictures. And all of a sudden, she noticed something that appeared right next to her mother. It looked like a ball of energy, and we couldn't see it with the naked eye, but we could see it through the viewfinder of the camera. And we'd taken pictures, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger right next to my wife. And then finally, my daughter took a next picture, and it formed into what is clearly a person standing right next to me. And it was really incredible because we asked it if we could take a picture of it, and he said yes, and he manifested so that we could. It was probably one of the coolest experiences in all of our ghost hunting career.
Wow, and the kids were not afraid?
Not at all.
Okay, tell me some more stories.
We were actually in another cemetery. It was called the Old Unity Cemetery, and it was a 200-year-old cemetery. And it was the first time when we were actually told to get out of the cemetery by a ghost. And we all felt the presence, and it was very, very negative. And I was holding my EMF detector, and I said, "Can you ping the needle on the EMF detector once for yes and two for no?" I said, I said, "Would you like us to leave?" And at that time, the EMF detector literally jumped out of my hand. It buzzed so loud I thought the thing was going to break. So we went out of there real quick.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you'd be running out of there real quick.
Yeah, and then we were in Kings Mountain Battlefield, and the most famous phenomenon in Kings Mountain Battlefield is people hear the sound of a phantom horse galloping through the battlefield. Well, here we are, we're walking along, and all of a sudden I hear this famous horse. And at first I thought it was my imagination. I stopped everyone. I said, "Did you hear that?" They said, "What?" I said, "I heard a horse." Nobody heard the horse. Well, when we got home, what I didn't realize is I had the audio recorder going the entire time. So when we got home and we reviewed the audio recorder, there's me saying, "Hey, I heard a horse," but just before that, you can clearly hear the galloping of a horse.
Wow.
On the audio recorder, and we actually have that on one of our episodes. It's called British Ghost Soldier Gallops Again.
Now, let me jump in here. Why do you think you're the only one who heard it? Because you were listening for it and the others weren't?
I just think at that time that I was in tune with it and the rest of them were not.
Okay.
That's the only thing I could think of.
Have you had any stories, anything happen where you guys were so frightened? I know you shared the one where you went and just basically, said, "Can't deal with this."
That's basically it. You could actually see that. It's called Ancient Spirit Desires Solitude. That's the and that it's a very short episode. It actually went viral on YouTube, and it's creepy just looking at it. It's just, you can just feel it watching it. It's kind of amazing. But other than that, we just don't get scared.
All right. So now your kids, they're in school, right? I mean, do their classmates know what they do? And mm-hmm. I'm sure their friends take it seriously, but do they get teased for being a ghost hunter?
Oh, no. Their friends love it. Their friends also say that they can never do it. They actually have had sleepovers where they all go onto the Daily Motion TV channel and do marathon Gallo Family Ghost Hunter episodes. And I think it's actually very funny. And some of these kids can't sleep for a week.
Wow. Well, yeah, I wouldn't sleep for a long time either. What do you think, though? We were talking about the movies. Like, what are your thoughts on Amityville Horror or Mothman Prophecies? When you see those things, how true do you think they are? Because sure, you can read the book and it's someone's perception, but when you have a whole family, saying that things are happening, it kind of gives, I think, more credibility. I don't think all those people would just make it up.
Well, here's the thing. Most of these movies are based in the truth, but I am one of these people. I'm starting to get really annoyed with a lot of these movies because they're pushing the envelope to try to scare people. And in the whole paranormal field, what started out as ghosts is now people are seeing demons everywhere, which I just don't think is happening at all. I just think it's mass hysteria. So I think a lot of these movies, they embellish them to the point where it's unrealistic. Because I think I've now been ghost hunting enough to know what a ghost can do and what a ghost cannot do, and most of the time, ghosts cannot do anything near what you see in these movies.
Okay, now did you see Mothman Prophecies?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and I read up quite a bit on that, and it says that supposedly it's true. It's very loosely based. Not everything was factual, of course.
Right.
The town that this happened in, I think it was in West Virginia, said that I think now they have, like a Mothman Day, almost like to capitalize on what supposedly happened. That kind of thing, that kind of disturbs me because it doesn't give credibility to it, although many of those things may have actually happened. Well, tell me a few more stories.
Okay. Let me see. What would be a really good story to tell you? We've just been in so many different places.
Are they mostly in New Jersey? Because you're in New Jersey, correct?
Oh, we've done them all over the country. I mean, we've been everywhere. I'll tell you one thing. I did a solo investigation in a cemetery. I was looking for this cemetery for about 6 months because it was supposed to be haunted. It turned out it was in the middle of the woods, and you couldn't get to it in the summertime because the brush was so thick. And this was, again, in South Carolina. And it was called Blackstock Cemetery. When I got to the cemetery, and actually this is one of our episodes, but it's just me, it's nobody else. I wasn't getting anything in the entire cemetery, and all of a sudden I looked down on the ground, and there's a teddy bear, and it was old. It was old. It had to be at least a couple decades old. It was all rotten, and it was sitting on top of a grave. Well, knowing what I know, I'd never touch these things. But I took my EMF detector, which wasn't doing anything, and I set it down next to the teddy bear, and the thing went crazy. And if you know anything about this, there's nothing about a teddy bear that can give off EMF energy.
Okay.
This thing was giving off the same energy you would get if you had this thing next to a power line. That's how strong it was. In essence, it was telling me, don't touch this thing.
Right. So do you think that it was giving off that energy because there was something that you couldn't see standing next to it?
Yes. Absolutely.
Okay. That would, I don't know how you do it by yourself. That would kind of frighten me.
Well, it couldn't be anything else, really.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at I'm going back to that little list that I have. We talk about pets, cold spots, hearing whispers. So I guess you kind of have to rule out with the person. Is it a mental disorder and something is actually wrong with them versus are they the only one? Because why wouldn't other people, for example, in a home hear those things? So you have to make sure that I guess you have to figure out how legitimate it is. Well, I just find the entire topic really, really fascinating. We have time for you to share one more quick story if you want to share one more.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, if they go to the website, they can see all of these because basically all of my stories, I pretty much don't have any that I haven't actually documented with my own, with my own camera and all of the other things that go along with that. But we were actually in Salem, Massachusetts, not too long ago. And we were at Old Burying Point, which, if a lot of people don't realize, it's the second oldest cemetery in the entire nation. And we were joking around that nothing was happening, that it was completely dead, and we weren't getting any evidence. And when we went back to watch the video, on the actual videotape, you could hear a person laughing along with us that it wasn't any of us.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. How can somebody contact you if they'd like to?
Well, we are on Facebook, ICOM Paranormal, ICOM Paranormal on Facebook. But the best way would be just to go to our channel on Daily Motion, which is ghosthunter.ws.
Great. Thank you again. And join us every week for a new Half Empty, Half Full Consumer Advocacy Talk radio show. Learn something new every week and get smarter faster. Be safe.
I've done my sentence.
Good morning, Tampa Bay. This is Patsy with the Z. Have you written a book or would you like to write one? Join me every Tuesday at 11 a.m. for Joy on Paper, a program for writers and those who dream of writing. I will discuss how to find an agent, how to deal with publishers, and most importantly, that scary query letter that you have to send out. Join me every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Tan Talk Radio.
We have a special guest on the line, Pete Rose. Pete, how you doing, buddy?
Rick, I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Good to talk to you. Bill called me and told me you were coming on. So excited. I know you got the new thing on TLC.
Pete hits and misses. Exciting. We're having a lot of fun and going there and just talking sports with you.
Fires, Rose swings. There it is! Get out! Set it out! All right! Hit number 4192.
Rocket Sports here on the Tan Talk
Radio Network.
Join Rick Sassone in the Rocket Sports Show Fridays from noon to 2 p.m.